Welcome. It is 2 o'clock on the nose, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Robin Haberman. I am an Associate State Director of Community Engagement with AARP in New York, and I am so pleased to welcome you to this important virtual session, Disaster Preparedness at Home. It just so happens that September is National Preparedness Month, so this program is very timely. At AARP, we believe that communities and individuals need to be prepared for disasters and emergencies that can happen at any time. We're using this program to educate AARP members, guests, and anyone else who's joining us today about resilience before disasters occur to make the post-disaster recovery process more understandable and in the hopes of lessening the amount of time people experience stress and trauma when faced with a disaster. AARP is so fortunate to collaborate with our presenters today, SBP. SBP is a national social impact organization dedicated to helping communities shrink the time between disaster and recovery by rebuilding homes, increasing preparedness and resilience, and improving systems to better serve the needs of all Americans everywhere. We'll be turning the program over to Leanne Ortiz and Tessa Barron from SBP in just a few moments, but a little housekeeping first. I do want to let you all know there will be a Q&A portion at the end of the program. So as we go along, please be sure to type your questions into the Q&A box and we'll answer as many of those as we can this afternoon. I also want to let you know this program is being recorded. So within the next day or two, you'll receive a link to that recording via email. Now, we couldn't have brought you all together here without a little help from our friends. And with that in mind, I would like to introduce Alana Kiefer from the New York Academy of Medicine, where Alana is the director of the Center for Healthy Aging, and she was integral to getting this program off the ground. So Alana, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robin. Hopefully you all can see and hear me. I work at the New York Academy of Medicine. You can see here our beautiful building in East Harlem. We've been around for 177 years. And you can see here that we really work to champion bold changes to systems that perpetuate health inequities. And we do this through doing our own research, through running and evaluating programs, and through policy recommendations. You can go to the next slide. And specifically, I direct the Center for Healthy Aging at the New York Academy of Medicine, which is one of our 3 research centers. And you can see that our goal is to advance the health and well-being of aging populations, once again, through research, policy, and programs. And we work on all different types of projects and research related to older adults, aging, and caregiving. But one of the areas that we are focusing on, especially more recently, is around climate change and disaster preparedness, which of course affects all of us, but especially older adults. And so we are very excited to be here with you all today. Next slide. One of the projects that we do, or that we completed, but is still available for all of you, and I'll make sure to put the link in the chat, is we did a research project with older New Yorkers, really trying to better understand how have they prepared for emergencies, whether it's climate related with weather disasters or a pandemic. And so through focus groups with older adults and through interviews with professionals, we developed this report. And part of the report was developing this flyer that you see here, which is really geared towards professionals that work with older adults. To you can see the different categories there related to partnerships, education, and services, to really best ensure that older adults in one's orbit are best prepared for future disasters. So I am going to now turn it over to Leanne for the bulk of the presentation, and hope you all enjoy.
Thank you so much, Alana and Robin. At SVP, we are grateful for our partnership with AARP and for the series with the New York Academy of Medicine. I'm Leanne Ortiz, SVP's Community Preparedness Engagement Manager. As Robin mentioned, SVP is a disaster recovery and resilience nonprofit dedicated to shrinking the time between disaster and recovery. While SVP initially focused only on long-term recovery, we've expanded our work to encompass the entire disaster cycle, and our approach includes 5 key interventions pictured here: rebuild, share, prepare, advise, and advocate. This comprehensive approach has allowed all of us to help communities prepare for disasters, respond swiftly, and continue the critical work of recovery. Through these different interventions, they have served dozens of communities nationwide, including New York and New Jersey after Hurricane Sandy, for the recovery efforts as SBP Friends of Rockaway. So at SBP, we would believe that achieving personal and community resilience and mitigating risk requires the actions of policymakers, community leaders, and individual residents. And education is what drives these actions. So through our program, we offer a wide range of resources that can be used to take actions such as checklists, written guides, videos, in-person trainings, webinars like today, all of which are available through our resource hub at sbpusa.org. So today we'll kick things off by discussing how to build a culture of preparedness, and we'll explore what this concept truly entails, how we can weave it into discussions about disaster recovery, and how we can broaden our understanding of disaster preparedness and planning. Next, we're going to dive into 5 essential actions you can take to ensure that safety of you and your family as we navigate risk. These actions will include knowing your risk, making a plan, purchasing flood insurance, mitigating risk to your property. So let's hop into it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about building a culture of preparedness as we discuss this. I encourage you to consider your own preparedness and how well you feel equipped to face natural disasters. So why is it important to build a culture of preparedness? So disasters, be it floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and other emergencies, are becoming very frequent. And unfortunately, it's not a question of when, if not if. So as we navigate this risk, it's essential to consider how to better equip yourself and fellow community members for future events, because we have to think about those around us as well. The New York Academy of Medicine in 2023, the report talks about how events like the 2003 blackout, Sandy, and other devastating events in the state of New York pose significant challenges to adults due to the common issues of the loss of power and disrupted services, which left many isolated in the need of essentials like food and medical care. Ultimately, by addressing this risk comprehensively, we can enhance personal and community resilience for all. So I've linked here our resource hub. You'll see it probably in the chat later on today. So we encourage you to continue that path to getting ready. So let's take a look here at the National Disaster Recovery Framework, which illustrates the full disaster cycle. At first, it's a little bit intimidating, but it really does help visualize what that process looks like. So as we build a culture of preparedness, involves engagement at every stage. So we're talking about from preparation to response to recovery and resilience. And it's important to understand that preparedness shouldn't be just confined to the start of this process, because while the nature of preparedness activities may change throughout the cycle, it is a continuous process. So we want to encourage everyone to think about preparedness as an ongoing commitment woven into each and every one of these phases throughout the disaster cycle. Okay. So we must prioritize preparedness at the individual, community, state, and federal levels. When the majority of citizens are prepared, government resources can focus on supporting those who are most valuable and vulnerable. So that's older adults, disabled individuals, families with young children. And SVP's mission is to assist those who have the greatest challenges to get back to a space to being fully recovered and safe in their home. So that's why we want to encourage everyone to get prepared, take those proactive steps so that you're in a good space if something were to happen. By all of us promoting a continuous understanding of disaster preparedness throughout the entire disaster cycle, and by equipping individuals with the necessary education and tools like we're doing today, we can cultivate a strong culture of preparedness. So we're going to start now with knowing your risk. This is a central aim of SBP, because we want to speed up the time between disaster and recovery. And honestly, the best way to do that is by reducing the need for recovery in the first place. So having an emergency plan is our foundation for preparedness, so we know what to prepare for. What exactly is it that we need to do? Okay, understanding your risks is a crucial part of being prepared. And in order to fully grasp your risks, it's crucial to understand how they are changing. Extreme storm events are becoming more frequent, like we mentioned earlier, and places that weren't currently positioned to be at risk now are. So one consideration that I like to emphasize is that government flood maps, unfortunately, are not solely reliable indicators of flood risk. These maps are not consistently assessed and updated for a variety of reasons, and therefore, if you depend on this information, you only be prepared for an outdated level of risk. Because our risk of flood events are changing, we encourage you to keep learning about risks through different resources, so combining all of these together. For New York specific, there is a valuable resource called Flood Help NY, where you can enter your home address to assess the flood risk ranging from minimal to high. This is particularly important for many older adults living in federal subsidized low-income senior housing, as much of it is situated in flood zones throughout the area. Additionally, the site provides helpful information on how to prepare for potential flooding, making it a very comprehensive tool. So I invite you to look up your address. It's really interesting. It has a lot of visuals that I think everyone would like. On a national scale, we recommend using these two valuable tools. The first one is Risk Factor, which was developed by the First Street Foundation. And similar to Flood Help NY, you enter your address or your zip code, and you can assess both different risks for your area, like heat, wind, and floods. It'll give you a score. And then if you want to look at your community risks, you can look at FEMA's National Risk Index for natural hazards to understand what it is that's going around, what do you need to prepare for around your community. So knowing both your individual and your community risks will provide a comprehensive picture of what to expect, and it will also help you how to prepare effectively. While past experiences can also inform you about vulnerable areas, for example, a future flood may impact your community differently. So we can't just rely on what our experiences have been before as well. Also, it is very crucial to point that many states do not require home sellers to disclose flash flooding. So it's very essential for you and your household to take that action and understand what that risk looks like for you. Okay, so by using resources where we just went over to determine your individual and community risks, you gain essential insights into both current and future threats. However, this is just part of that equation. We also have to stay informed about imminent hazards, and it's crucial to taking action and staying safe. I encourage you to utilize local weather and news apps if you're into just looking up in your phone. You can use the NOAA weather radio, whether it be the physical one or the app on your phone, and any other emergency and weather application that you would like to use to stay updated for any potential hazards. In New York particularly, you can take advantage of the NY Alert at alert.ny.gov. And this resource provides notifications for severe weather, transportation updates, public health, and many other things. So again, it's another really good comprehensive tool. And you can customize it, which is my favorite part, to receive alerts with your preferred method of communication. So it could be anything like an email or a text or a phone call, something that I think will impact different generations. And in my case, I love, because if I'm at work, I'm probably going to see an email first before I'm looking at a text. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. Next, we're going to be talking about creating your preparedness plan, and it doesn't have to be complicated, I promise. So in this section, we'll outline steps to simplify the process for you. Okay, here we have those 3 steps. Creating a preparedness plan for your household. It is important to meet risks prepared and confidently. So we have divided this process into 3 digestible steps for you. That is putting together your supply kit, creating your emergency plan, and making a recovery plan. So here we can review some essential supplies for emergencies. I'm sure you've seen many lists of different supplies to gather. As disasters can strike at any moment, it's very important for you to do a list, prepare your kit now rather than when something is being announced, because not every time you're going to have that long period to prepare. So first recommendation is to stock up on non-perishable, easy to prepare foods. Think about 1 to 2 weeks. Canned food, dried fruits, and include necessary items to prepare them. Plan at least for 1 gallon of water per person per day, and please don't forget your pets when it comes to water and food. Set aside essentials such as your flashlight, extra batteries, the first aid kit, battery-powered radio. And don't forget your medications, if you need any ID bands, hearing aids, any other important medical device, having it easily accessible, and if you have an extra, having it with your kit. Also, it's very important to have comfort items like books and toys, and again, including pets and children in that equation. I know for me, a deck of cards was very entertaining because it helped me keep engaged with neighbors and family, and also had me something to do while a long power outage happened. And also it's very important. There's a lot of lists that you can use, but at the end of the day, you need to tailor it to the needs of your household. So it's key again to prepare these right now and being ready in advance. So when something does happen, it goes much smoother and you're a lot less stressed. Okay, while disasters can be costly, preparing for them doesn't have to be. So we want to emphasize that you can build your emergency kit without breaking the bank. And so here are some cost-effective tips that we've all tried. They're tried and true, and we would like to share them with you. So you don't have to buy everything at once. You can build your kit little by little as your budget allows. And this way you can spread costs over time. You'll also find out that a lot of these items, you probably have them in your home, but they're in different locations. So you need to put them all together. You can look for sales tax holidays or special discounts. For example, many states have a tax-free period ahead of hurricane season where certain items are exempt from sales tax, like generators and different radios and stuff like that. Mark those dates on your calendar for the next year if you have already passed that in your state. Another thing that you can do is you can visit discount stores such as Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Five Below, or online stores like Amazon. That's where I was able to get a lot of things because they would go on immediate sale. So make sure to have those on your list and see if you can get a notification when they get cheaper. Another thing that you could do, which is also very important, you can reach out to your local community organizations. Many of them offer disaster preparedness kits or items that you can add on your kit, especially before severe weather season. So now as we're gearing up into winter weather, there might be different organizations who are offering items for your kits. And lastly, you can use these strategies all together. It's not just one that's going to work. And that way you can be able to put your supply kit all together without having to break the bank. Okay, staying ready. So prepare your emergency plan and regularly practice and update it. I think that's sometimes one of the hardest parts. We prepare a plan and then we forget that we need to practice it, we need to share it, and we need to update it because things continue changing. So this is also a good opportunity to discuss it with your loved ones and assign someone to check in. That could be someone who's outside of town or maybe not as close by to the same area, or if not, maybe you guys are close by, but you know you have someone that will check in on you and vice versa. You can discuss your plans with friends and family to see if there's anything that they should be involved in, or just for awareness, for peace of mind for family members. This is a good opportunity also to connect with your neighbors. This could be for regular check-ins and to better understand how you can support them through the process. For example, it could be encouraging one another to follow safety mandates, especially since many older adults reported that after Sandy, they would hesitate to evacuate. So sometimes somebody needs that helping hand, that encouraging voice to let them know hey, you're not alone here. We're going to get through this together. Let's go and evacuate. It is very important also that you stay informed about the emergency plans for your employer, your children's school, if you have any community organizations that you're involved in, and even the property where you live. So you can adjust your personal plan accordingly, as sometimes you'll find out you're part of somebody else's plan too. So make sure to have those conversations. And also through that conversation, let folks know if you have any needs. For example, if you're going to need help in evacuating, or you'll need someone to check in on something, make sure to have that conversation during regular days so the process can go a lot smoother. And lastly, make sure that you're monitoring the weather or any updates and maintain contact with folks. Keep people updated so no one worries. So I'd like to know from everyone here, what strategies or tools have you found most helpful during emergencies that you would recommend to others? And you could put those on the chat. I know for me, I live far away from my family. It was sharing with them what I would do in case that I had to evacuate or shelter in place. And that really relieved a lot of their stress, being that I live in an area that's impacted a lot by disasters. Okay. Excellent. Up next, making a recovery plan. So this is an important part of your preparedness plan. It is fundamental to your successful recovery. And I know it's something that sometimes we don't necessarily want to think about because we would hope that a disaster wouldn't impact us. But I think it's a lot better to have that recovery plan in place. And if you never have to use it, even better. Ultimately, you'll need financial resources not only to restore safe living conditions, but also to help equip your home for future events. Unfortunately, many low-income families face challenges in accessing the four primary recovery funding sources. So that is because of having limited savings, restricted credit access, delayed or insufficient disaster aid, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, and inadequate and non-existing disaster insurance coverage. When you're making your recovery plan, you can consider how you may shift your finances and budget as able to ensure that you have a reliable financial source for a predictable and speedy recovery. So some of these questions can look like which of these financial resources, which could be savings, loans, aid, insurance, can I rely on for a recovery if a disaster occurs? Also know that they can be stacked up. Where can I rebudget to set aside money for unexpected expenses? Because we know things are getting increasingly more expensive. Where does disaster planning fit overall in my overall financial planning? Which I would say start with that one. And that's a good conversation to have with your household or loved one, because sometimes we need to talk it out loud with somebody. Next, savings. So I know this looks very different for everyone. And as like life is getting more expensive each day, it's very important still for us to share this information with you. It's important to set aside cash for unexpected shelter costs that can include hotel, gas, food, water, any basic necessities. You have to think about deductibles, which are the amount of money that you're responsible for paying out of pocket towards your insured losses. That's like you can think about your car, rental insurance or house insurance, things like that. And then you can think about other unexpected costs, like, for example, how much you'll need to spend on fuel, whether it be to drive a long distance or to run your generator for a prolonged time. Different things like this could impact one's regular budget, so it's good to prepare for it ahead. For loans, you can think of credit or loan options. You can meet with your trusted financial counselor to discuss what are the best options for you, your household, and your current budget. Know that if you do apply for FEMA disaster aid, you will be directed to the Small Business Administration, also known as the SBA, who offers low interest loans to homeowners and renters in federally declared disaster areas. And they'll do this to see if a loan is the right option for you, but we will say that you're not obligated to accept this loan. So it's going to be a process. It's a question that folks have a lot when they're accessing disaster aid. So we want to make sure that you know this. This is a process that's going to happen. For disaster aid, it is very important to you to check if your home has any insurance mandates that could prevent you from receiving future aid. This is a quick step that you can take today. If anyone has received disaster aid for your specific home in the past, we're talking about the home, the structure of it, not you as an individual. And it could be that somebody else lived in the home before. You cannot apply again unless you maintain insurance coverage for a similar event. So unfortunately, it's your responsibility as a resident to verify any existing mandates. And you can quickly do this through contacting FEMA. On the slide, we have their phone and their email. It's a quick action you can take. It'll give you peace of mind and you'll understand where you stand in case of an emergency. Understanding that federal aid assistance is limited and can take time to be received is very crucial. As we saw in that slide at the beginning with the disaster recovery framework, we saw that a lot of steps take a long time, sometimes even months. So that's it's important to set those expectations and know that you have to prepare to wait sometimes that long if you do qualify for disaster aid. If you do receive aid and you're dissatisfied with the amount of it, you have the right to appeal to it. Also keep in mind that assistance at the end of the day is not guaranteed. For instance, if you receive aid for flood damages one time and then you didn't keep coverage for flood insurance, you will not be receiving aid again. This highlights the importance of financial preparedness and securing the right insurance to set up success for yourself and your household. This is very important for renters because sometimes as renters, we think we don't necessarily have any rights when it comes to the recovery space. So we want to take a moment as we wrap up this section to acknowledge that you do have rights, and it's important to be aware of what those steps looks like after a disaster event. So here's some best practices. After a disaster, document all damages to your unit. That could be your belongings with clear pictures and videos. This is crucial because for an insurance claim and the discussions for your landlord, you'll need to have these photos and also make it a lot more streamlined. You're entitled to property repairs following your disaster, so make sure that you familiarize yourself with local tenant laws to advocate for all of your rights. Submit repair requests, writing and using certified mail. Include detailed description of damages and any documentation that can supplement that. And always keep a copy of your records. If you need to leave your apartment after a disaster, give your landlord written notice of your absence, including how long you're expected to be gone. Sometimes follow-ups are necessary in that process, so you ensure that your concerns are being addressed. So make sure that, again, you're keeping track of all the communications that you're having with your landlord. At the end of the day, if the repairs are also delayed, consider tenant advocacy groups and legal aid for assistance and guidance with that process. Okay, next we'll focus on getting the right insurance to protect your home. If you already have homeowners, renters, or car insurance, or even health insurance, you know that policies can be full of a lot of confusing legal language. So don't hesitate to seek help and fully understand your coverage before finalizing or updating any policy. A best practice that I like to share with friends and family is that if it's time to update a policy, put some time on your calendar to speak with an agent and go over all of those questions. They're there to help and they're there to answer those questions. So at SVP, we advocate for everyone to have flood insurance coverage. In fact, insurance is often cheaper for those who are outside of mandatory purchase zones. So, however, it's important to recognize that these areas can still be at risk due to inaccurate flood maps, like we spoke before. So therefore, if you're purchasing insurance, it's essential for you to identify your risk, like we talked about earlier, through different resources, or if you simply want peace of mind, understanding that it's a good option to get flood insurance. Okay, here are some basics about insurance, and it's important to know what's in your policy. And we talked about the confusing lingo, so hopefully this helps a little bit more. These are the standard parts and what you'll have coverage for. So for renters, know that your landlord's insurance will only cover the structure of your apartment building or rental home, not what's inside of not what's inside, like what you own, your sofa and stuff like that. So make sure you have your own renter's insurance policy. Know your policy type. So named peril policies mean that you're covered for losses resulting from the peril specifically listed in your policy and nothing else. All risk policies cover for any accidental cause of loss except for those specifically excluded in your policy. I know it's a little bit confusing. It's also critically important to know if you have replacement cost coverage, which will give you enough to replace lost items for those of a similar kind of quality versus actual cash value, meaning the value of the item less depreciation, meaning that it will most likely won't be enough to cover the replacement of that item. All risk policies have exclusions. So exclusions are policy provisions that waive coverage for certain types of risk or events. Unfortunately, many people aren't aware that they aren't already covered for things like flooding by their existing homeowners or renters policy. So many people are also unaware that of the importance that they do get covered. So that's why we like to drive home the importance of getting separate flood insurance. It's also crucial to take the time to understand inclusions in your policy. Don't be afraid to ask questions and go back to your agent for more details and clarifications. And don't be afraid to ask another trusted source for a second opinion. That's also a really good exercise to do. See what other folks are doing, what has worked best for them, or if there were any questions that you hadn't thought about. So that would be a really good exercise for you to do to get started with this journey. At the end of the day, what matters most here is your understanding and making sure that you're purchasing exactly what you're purchasing so you can have peace of mind. For flood insurance, there's the National Flood Insurance Program, which offers most of the policies in the US. And as federal dollars come in, we'd encourage you to think about how different programs can subsidize and assist with covering your flood insurance. I encourage you again to speak to your agent about the National Flood Insurance Program policies and private flood insurance options. So like the comparison between both of us. options with both partial coverage and full coverage to know and really understand what you have available to you. Disaster risks are increasing, therefore insurance costs are going to increase as well to cover the costs of transferring this risk. So it's a good exercise again to have with your agent. Here are some key actions for financial preparedness. First, check what your homeowners or renters insurance covers and make necessary adjustments to ensure adequate coverage. So save money again for your deductibles, set aside cash, and create a home inventory. You can do this very easily, like just grabbing your phone, walking around the house, and then designating a day per room. If you take it all at once, it could be a little bit overwhelming, but I definitely recommend just taking it room by room. Maybe if you want to separate it by like items that are that you care deeply about, and then like items in the kitchen, items in the bedroom. It's an exercise that I did recently, and it let me know that there was a lot more in my home that I cared about that I had first thought about. So please do that when you have the chance. And again, I know this can all be challenging due to rising costs. So one suggestion that we have for folks is to have automated transfers to an emergency savings account. If you can do it weekly, if you can do it monthly, if you can do it every other month. And this way you're not seeing that money, you're not touching it. And then when you need it, you have access to it. If you have any claim concerns, there are a few resources you can reach out to, like the National Flood Insurance Program. You can reach out to your state's Division of Consumer Services, or you can reach out to United Policyholders, which is a nonprofit dedicated to helping consumers navigate insurance. Disaster recovery is challenging, and not having the access to essential documents can complicate this process a lot. So by organizing your important records down, you can eliminate one potential hurdle when the time comes. We separated into 4 buckets. It's going to be personal documents, household, legal and financial documents, and medical. So starting off with personal identification documents, here are some that you should consider having copies of, whether you store them physically or digitally in a safe location. Think of the entire household and do not forget your pet's information. Not only are most of these items sometimes hard or just tedious to replace, it's going to help you move around a lot easier and also help with your recovery process a lot better. In emergencies, we often rely on information we remember or have on our phones, and I'm very guilty of that. However, in the moment, it can be very difficult to locate or recall this information, especially if service is unavailable. So gather your household information and contacts in advance will ease this challenge. Something to think about, sometimes you need to call immediately your electricity service, your power provider. You need to call the water company. You need to call your family. Maybe you don't remember all those phone numbers. It's good to have them written out. Something that I did recently was like take a couple of important family contacts and then of services for my home and put them on the fridge. And that's honestly been very helpful because when something happens, if I don't have my phone on me, maybe there's another phone available, I can quickly call. So when talking about financial and legal documents, we here have a couple of essential ones to think about. I would say start with your home and car ownership records, lease agreements, your tax returns. That's something that's usually asked of if you're applying for disaster aid. Very important, all of your insurance policies, and having these documents readily available. Like I've mentioned before, it's going to speed up that process. Working with clients impacted by disasters, I saw a big difference with the folks who had access to their documents versus those who didn't. And there was a significant difference in how quickly the process went for them and just like the overall stress of it all. Safeguarding your medical documents for emergencies when you might not have access to your doctor or your pharmacy can make a very big difference. So check if your care provider offers digital record tools like MyChart or Health Vault or similar ones to manage your medical information. As many doctors use this now, you can also ask if it could be printed out at the doctor's office, or if you have access to it in your computer or your phone, I would recommend printing that out and just having a copy in your go bag. And then some additional things that you should consider in your medical documents section is having the information for your medical devices, whether that be a wheelchair, your walker, oxygen, and include model numbers and vendors because it could be very useful to have that information as well. So you can secure your important documents in very several ways, and I know this works very differently for everyone. There's things that work for others, some that don't. So for physical copies, consider using a waterproof or fireproof folder or safe. Personally, I like to use a folder because that way I can put it in my bag if I need to evacuate, or keep copies with a trusted person. That could be a family member or a lawyer. For digital files, you can store copies on a flash drive or upload them to your preferred cloud service. Of course, be very cautious about which cloud service you're using and monitoring constantly just in case. And it's also wise to share this information with at least one trusted individual so they know where to find it in case for an emergency. So in my case, I shared that information with my sister because we live in very different locations. And I shared with her exactly where to find it, what color was the folder, and if not, where to find it online for me. Because if something were to happen and I can't access them or I need her to guide somebody to it, she can do that even if she's miles away. So that's another consideration to take. So I have another question for folks to put on the chat. I would like to hear from each and every one of you. What's your best practice for securing your documents? This could be helpful for folks to figure out maybe a better practice than what they're doing right now. Okay, if you're still thinking about it and would like to share, oh, we have someone who shared waterproof folder and in a firebox. That's double prepared. Love that. Fireproof bag, have a home safe to the iCloud. Definitely have access to it wherever you go. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Lastly, let's talk about protecting your home from physical damage. And I will say some of these measures just need a little bit of planning out and some effort, while some might require a little bit more of an investment. At the end of the day, it's important for you to evaluate your options and choose what works specifically best for your home and your family. There are different ways to protect your home, and today we'll be separating again into 3 buckets. So for inspections and maintenance, regular inspections and to do them year round will ensure your home is in good shape, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a renter. So we'll look at actionable steps you can take there. For securing emergencies before the next storm, take quick actions like clearing the gutters and disconnecting appliances to secure your property. And then for property improvements, while maintenance and emergency preparation are crucial, we also understand that investing in property improvements is the best way to enhance your home's resilience. So we'll be talking about a couple of steps there too. So renters across the country are experiencing high levels of disaster risk. Actually, 40% of the country's rental stock faces high levels of disaster-related risk, which is mind-blowing to me. An important part of protecting your home as a renter is understanding your rental agreement. And as renters experience this elevated risk to disaster, it's very important for you to have to read it, understand it, and have discussions, maybe with a trusted peer. So maybe it's like, hey, I'm not understanding my rental agreement too well. I want to prepare some questions for my landlord. Can you help me talk through this? So that's a good step to take there. Once you're ready to go there, have a conversation with your landlord about who's responsible for what, rather than when things start happening. And this goes not only for emergencies, it also can be like, oh, something in the bathroom's not working. Who's responsible for that? If you have that conversation ahead of time, it will save you a lot of headaches, and also it'll help you prepare accordingly. For regular inspections and maintenance, there are some key actions you can take throughout the year. I would say start by clearing out any potential hazards like dead trees and overhanging limbs, and clearing drainage and gutters. You can keep things, if you keep things working in the right way and just like making sure everything's under control, it's easier to catch issues or like small things, and usually it'll be less expensive to fix. I know there's things that don't work that way, but usually for most of things, it'll be less expensive to fix, and you can mitigate those potential risks. If you're a renter, make sure to take note of what's deemed your responsibility to keep it updated. And if it's the landlord's, let them know as soon as possible. with what those things need to be taken care of, because sometimes it takes a little bit longer and you want to make sure you're on top of that. So if something does happen that was already taken care of, it's not a risk for you anymore. When you're understanding your risk, consider all the events that are likely to occur. So for example, with winter storms that are potentially coming up, make sure that you inspect your roof, inspect your heating systems and water heaters, check the insulation in your walls, your attics, your pipes. Make sure that your gutters are clean and your furnace filters get changed. And lastly, apply some caulk and weather stripping throughout your home. So these are a couple of more steps that you can take. I know fall just started, but I know the weather can get harsh very quickly up in the Northeast. Okay, here are some rights for renters. If a disaster event occurs, document any damages to your unit. Know that you're entitled to property repairs. If there's anything that you need to do, if there's any repairs that are needed, use certified mail, and then give written notice to your landlord if you need to leave, which we went over earlier. Power outages can occur during any storm, especially as we approach the harsh winter weather in the Northeast. It's crucial to prepare year-round by taking small steps like testing out your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide monitors. Carbon monoxide poisoning is extremely dangerous, particularly when using alternative power sources. If you have the capacity, consider investing in a generator or something similar, and prioritizing learning about general generator safety or the safety for that. Let's say if it's a big power bank, for your peace of mind. We do have some quick tips that I'll share right now. Always operate your generator outdoors. Try to keep it 20 feet away from windows and doors. Allow it to cool before refueling. I learned that one the hard way. Only plug appliances directly in. Use heavy duty extension cords in good condition as well. And as we know, make sure to keep all of that away from water. That includes ice and snow. Additionally, if you choose a generator, make sure it's meeting your energy needs. So think about, can it power your appliances? Can it power your medical devices that you'll need throughout the day, especially during the night? During power outages, make sure to unplug any appliances or electronics as necessary and also as able, and never use the gas stove to heat your home, please. And then if you need any more tips and resources on preparing for power outages and just preparing for winter weather in general, in our resource hub, we have some very helpful checklists and also guides to help you look into things and prepare for that weather. Here are some quick actions that you can take, especially for more storm events than anything. And these will help you save money and also avoid heartache as much as possible. So we recommend laying sandbags near doorways or moving valuable items off the ground floor. So you can consider things like important files, electronics, if you have any important foods, especially replaceable and comfort items that may be lying low to the ground. But be sure to put up your storm shutters as soon as possible and don't wait until the wind picks up. You want to make sure that you keep yourself and your family safe. Also bring outdoor items inside, such as furniture, toys, any appliances, anything that you honestly don't want it to get damaged or turn into projectiles for you or your neighbors. And if you can't bring them inside, make sure that they're properly secured. Think of like securing your shed and things like that. Lastly, disconnect any electrical appliances if you can. These quick actions will tie into what you've identified as risks already for your household. So view them as a starting point or actions to add to your planning for each of the risks of your house that your household may face. We mentioned that we were going to talk about a couple of mitigation options. We'll be sharing more budget-friendly ones than anything, and then wrapping up with a couple of other ones that you should consider. So in the case of water events like flooding, you can start by protecting outdoor units and service equipment. You can consider replacing carpet with tiles, which are more durable and can save you money in the long run, because if the house were to flood, you don't have to replace all the flooring. You can install a backwater preventer or a sump pump. You can flood-proof the interior of your building. These are all very effective strategies for those with the capacity maybe to invest a little more, or if their county or state has any different assistance for folks to do this mitigation efforts to their home. You can consider raising mechanical systems, installing flood vents, elevating your home. And all of these steps all combined together little by little, they will enhance the overall resilience of your home. So we invite you to know your risks, to create a plan and gather documents. And we know that all will work, but we also know that investing in mitigation options for your home is critical to damage the physical damage to the structure of your home overall. It's very important for all of us to share about avoiding contractor fraud. Unfortunately, we know that this happens a lot, and it doesn't only happen during the recovery phase. It also happens when we're doing just improvements to our home, doing mitigation efforts. So if you or anyone you know is doing work on their property, if they're doing it now or anytime in the future, you need to be very proactive to protect yourself from potential fraud and to find contractors who can give you quality work at a fair price. So here are some tips that you can use to vet your contractor. First, you can ensure that they have insurance and obtain copies of their license and important documents. If a contractor is not sharing that information with you, that's already a red flag. They should be ready or if not offer to share that information with you. Get multiple bids. I would say a safe number is always to get 3. And don't hesitate to ask them for references. Even if it's people that you don't know, they'll usually share someone that they worked on. Again, if they don't want to share any, it's probably a red flag. Review the contract thoroughly. That's including the scope of work, the home inspection, there's a release of land, payment structure, warranty, all of that. You really want to look into that. And again, don't be afraid to go to a trusted source, get any legal advice so you can make sure that what you're paying for with your hard-earned money is safe and that you're getting what you're paying for. So make sure to do that. I also added here that the AARP has a Fraud Watch Network helpline that you can get support and guidance. So make sure to call them. They also have a web page, and it's a really good resource, especially if you want to discuss that process that you're having with your contractor. So here's a quick overview and an invitation to take action today and consider following these steps. So we talked about assessing your risk, to create a plan and share with loved ones, review your insurance coverage, safeguard important documents, and explore mitigation measures to enhance your home safety. Taking these steps can significantly make a difference in your preparedness and your overall household. So I have another question for all of y'all to please answer in this chat. How will you encourage your family and community members to actively participate in preparedness efforts? I would love to hear what next steps look for you. Recently, I heard of someone that every time that they go to a restaurant, they ask the person next to them if they are prepared for risks in their area. And I thought that was very kind of them to think of folks in their community. And even though folks were like, I don't know why you're asking me this, at the end of the day, it always turned into a really good conversation about how to stay prepared. Okay, someone shared that they'll talk about preparedness nonstop with everyone. I'm a disaster preparedness researcher. I love that. I think you and the person I met recently would get along really well. I'm in the process of helping my parents. That's really great. I made a go back for an older friend. That's really good. I hope others get inspired to do that. Sometimes if we can get prepared ourselves or we're ready to go on that front, it's really good to look at other folks in our community who might need that assistance. So looking at neighbors, at older adults in our community who might need, maybe they have everything else good to go, but they might need some extra supplies. So that's a really good thing to do. I will share with all my loved ones and friends as a reminder. Thank you. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Preparedness equipment as a gift to family members and friends. That's really good with holidays coming up. I think that would be a really good gift. So here we have our resource hub. So if you want any more information on preparing for disasters, navigating recovery, definitely please visit SVP's website and dive into our resource hub. Another great resource is AARP's Disaster Resilience Toolkit, which empowers folks to better support their communities. And then here we have some local resources. We compiled some valuable resources for all of y'all, many of which are already highlighted throughout the presentation, but I highly recommend you also visiting your county's emergency management website or office, as they will provide important information that's tailored to your area and your specific risk and needs. And lastly, I want to say thank you for all of y'all for joining us and also for participating in the chat and for all that good work you guys are doing in your communities. And also a thank you to AARP and the New York Academy of Medicine. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat right now, or if not, you can contact us at prepared@svpusa.org. I'll pass it over to you, Robin.
Thank you, Lynn. That was some really amazing information. I was taking notes for my home, so I have a few things on my to-do list now. So thank you for all of that. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, a lot of the preparedness actions you mentioned today rely a lot on technology, the apps, the news, uploading documents into a web-based platform. But as you probably know, older adults, sometimes there's a digital divide and not everyone has access to technology or even access to broadband, which is something else that AARP works on routinely. What tips or what recommendations do you have for people who maybe have technological limitations?
That's a really good question. For documentation, I'll start with you can never go wrong with printing out resources to go to your local library. If, for example, if you're at your medical office, ask for copies of that information. And sometimes you even have a lot of those documents. So putting all those together in a safe, waterproof and fireproof folder is a really good step. For getting to know more information about the risks in your areas, take a visit to if you have a local resilience hub, if your local emergency management office, they'll be able to share a lot of information, resources, and even tailor it, give you a more of like a personalized experience about how you can prepare specifically for the risks that you're facing. And also it's always a really good visit to get to meet the folks who are out there serving our communities. I would also recommend getting a radio. We often forget just how much valuable information is shared on radios. I recently got a NOAA weather radio, which I think someone mentioned on the chat. And it was incredible, all the information that they were sharing when my phone and the app was failing due to service. So definitely let's revert back to a good old classic and seeing what information could be shared. And then at the end of the day, nothing better than word of mouth, communicating with our fellow neighbors and our community members, as we can learn a lot from them as well.
And someone mentioned in the chat that they made a go bag for an older relative. If you were making a go bag either for someone that you know or yourself, that just kind of quick grab emergency bag, what goes in that? What are the essentials?
I would say essentials, try to have food, water for at least 3 days, also a couple of changes of clothing. And mine particularly, I keep leggings just in case that where I am, there's a lot of trees and stuff. So I need to make sure that I don't have short shorts or something like that. Things that are interchangeable. I keep a poncho or a light rain jacket, those that are very tight in there just in case. This is very specific to me, but a water filtration straw. I got it for $12 at Walmart, I believe. That was really good. And then make sure to have a comfort item there for you. In my case, like I mentioned earlier, I kept a deck of cards during Hurricane Maria. I found that was very useful for me and my family, and it helps you connect with others too, do something fun. We do have a supply kit on a budget list, which shows your kit if you want to do your supply kit, if you want to do a car kit, if you want to do a bag. So we can definitely share that in the chat, or if not, you can find it in our resource hub, as it helps you navigate those different kits that you should probably have.
And you would ask the question, what are people going to do to kind of help spread the word? And I have a question for you, which is, if you have family members who maybe are just not feeling that sense of urgency to do this, or you get any resistance, what is some good language, or what are some good talking points if you're talking to someone to impress upon them the importance of preparation?
That's a really good question. That was something that we were actually talking about it as a team recently, because we faced it in one of our team challenges of getting our family prepared. A good thing to do is storytelling. Usually all the locations that we're at have experienced something, a disaster. So sometimes reaching into stories of folks around our family or our community, or using visuals. NOAA has a lot of good helpful resources to see the risks in our area, and it actually helps us you can see where your home is, what can be impactful, and that could usually help with navigating that process, that conversation with family members. But I think ultimately the most important part is to meet people where they're at. We can't push a lot of information onto people, It's sometimes just going, taking baby steps. And if we can help them, like giving them a preparedness kit and then preparing different things and having conversations here and there, ultimately folks come around.
Great.
I hope that was helpful.
Highlight Alana's comment in the chat that she wants to get a book on edible plants growing in the wild, which I think is excellent advice for any of us who learn to be foragers.
Yes.
If someone on this call has not taken any preparedness steps yet, what is step one? What is like the very first thing that you would recommend someone do if they're short on time, but they want to like make, one good proactive step today? What is that step?
I would say get to know your risk. If you're in New York, make sure to go to Flood Help NY, or if not, use some risk factor or the FEMA National Index tool that we shared. Just get to know your risk so that way you can start familiarizing yourself with what you would need to prepare for. It doesn't take long to just look online or have a conversation, and it usually helps you feel a lot more guided as you go into the process, rather than starting preparing for a lot of unknowns and then finding out that a lot of them don't necessarily apply to you.
Yep. And if you find that you do live in a area with a high risk of flood or other risks, what different steps are you taking? Aside from maybe flood insurance, what are you doing differently than maybe somebody who doesn't live in a high risk area?
So by living, in my case, I do live in an area that's prone to floods. I actually live in Houston. Aside from flood insurance, is making sure that I have, for example, items to make sandbags in my home, that I know the steps that I need to take if we're getting any flash flood warnings. That could be elevating items. And honestly, at the end of the day, trying to take, planning to take mitigation options in our home, like can we elevate our home? Can we move? Stuff like that.
Great. Well, we are rapidly coming to a close here. I want to thank Leanne for all of this wonderful information, Tessa and Helen for helping us out in the chat and with the Q&A, and Alana over at the New York Academy of Medicine for helping us put this all together. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else learned a lot. I see some really nice comments in the chat, so make sure you check those out. I think everyone learned some next steps to take going forward. To all of our guests who chose to spend their afternoon with AARP, we thank you. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization with membership for people age 50 and over, offering a wide variety of events, information, and opportunities to empower older adults to choose how they live as they age. We hope to see you at another AARP event soon, and you can always see what we're up to by visiting www.aarp.org/local. You will receive a link to this recording in the next day or two, so you can share it with those friends and family who you want to make sure are getting as prepared as you. And with that, I say thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will see you again soon. Bye, everybody.